taping this, both video and audio. Don't let that stop you from asking questions, because I'm sure everybody's got questions, so don't let that stop you. The way I wanted to run this session, though, was I want to spend the first bit of it on the API. I did post the first version of the document this morning on the Facebook page. I'm going to go through a demonstration of it, since I think a picture's worth 1,000 words. But I'll be completely forthright and honest in saying that it's not perfect. And just like everything else in this application that has flexibility, it may not be right for everybody to implement today. Some people may want to wait for the next release, which is probably a week to 10 days away. Some people may need to wait until the future when it's less technical and easier to implement for people without technology skills or people they can rely on. So our plan is to get better and better, just like with the application, to get better and better with the API. But for those of you who are technical or can rely on people who are technical, you can make the decision to implement, to wait, or to wait until version 2, where it would be a less technical approach. So as we've been saying all along, we're building, things take time. We appreciate your support and partnership as we go along. But Rome wasn't built in a day, and either was this API, which obviously took us a couple months more than we expected, based on, very honestly, how complex it is and what we're trying to do. After the API discussion, I'll definitely hold on the call for just general questions, best practices, demonstrate how you do this. And as I continue to discuss on Facebook, I mean, there's a million different ways to do things. How I do things or ask my agents to do things, very honestly, may not fit your business model. So, there isn't just one way to skin the cat. So, take that with a grain of salt. And also, via Facebook, feel free to suggest other ways of doing things, both that the system supports today, or even ideas for improving the system going forward, since we've adopted very much a community-driven model on how we're building the application out. So if there are no initial questions, what I want to do is, again, jump to a quick demonstration of when we talk about API, what we're talking about. And that may answer a whole lot of questions before we get into specifics. Any initial comments from the questions? Robert, anything?
Of course, I always have something to say, but when we volunteered as a guinea pig here at the publication, I had a couple agents that dedicated their time to, hey, listen, I'm going to work with you and Nikita, the developer. I have really gave them, to be honest with you, I gave them total reign. If you think it should be this way, if you think it should be that way, yes, I book reservations personally, but also I wanted someone that, booking $1 million a year to make some decisions versus me, I, probably book $100,000 to $300,000 a year and have other responsibilities, or I probably do some more. There wasn't any major issues when we developed it and we put in, the reservation forming, the contact form and the payment form. There wasn't any majors. It was basically back, in November, little silly things like if someone chose, a Canadian province, or if someone was putting in, something silly like want to pay by phone instead of, giving my credit card over the, the phone. If it was not showing up applications here. And every time something like that happened, Nikita would fix it from Bailey Consulting immediately in hours. So we're probably 95% at this point, maybe even 98%. The only issue I'm seeing, to be honest with you, from our side of things as a guinea pig or whatever you want to call it, is the duplication process. process if you have a client that's in there because you imported them and now you see them in there again because they submitted a request for a reservation or payment. So we'll work that out. We should have it finished by the end of the day. We just had to come up with making a decision on it has to be email, it has to be last name, it has to be something else. For the system to say, hey, by the way, you have two clients in here with different addresses, but the same information, and then it's my choice to give that, and each person may be different, each owner may be different. That's my belief that you would then give that responsibility to the agent to say, okay, this is the new address, copy over the old address type thing, so you wouldn't have duplication. But that's my 2 cents. Let's go ahead, Jim.
Okay, thanks, Robert. So any other questions, or let me show a quick demonstration of how the API is currently working, and then I'll go into a little bit more detail that Robert just brought about some of the known items that need improvement, and from there we'll go forward. Anybody else just before I get started? Perfect. So basically there are two different, I'm going to use the word interfaces or linkage that the API currently supports. And when I say API, all I'm talking about is the ability from data from somebody's website or any website to be automatically sent to Vacation CRM and basically loaded into the system without repeat entry on your part, and very honestly, nothing on your part. So the first, and what I think is the more simple of the two, is the ability for somebody to submit a payment on a website and have it show up that information in Vacation CRM. And the caveat here is if you've chosen to be PCI compliant, this makes no sense for you because you wouldn't want to store the credit card information. You can still use it and then delete the credit card information on your site, but it limits the effectiveness of having this call. So I'm going to demonstrate this just quickly using Beach Bum's website since they implemented this, and you'll see. Obviously, it doesn't matter what your form looks like. All that matters is the fields are similar, since that's what's being passed on to Vacation CRM. So if I clicked on their submit payment, and your submit payment page may look different or may not exist today, and select Robert and have somebody type in their information, whatever it might be. Right, and this is just one example of a form. Obviously, there's others, and I hope this passes security protocol. I could put background music on while I do this if you guys like. All right, and if I hit submit, please go through. All right, and then I go and check Vacation CRM. What we will see is a new transaction just came through for a payment. It's linked to the profile reservation that I entered, because reservation 9191 was actually for Jeffrey LeCount. If I click on the payment, it will actually show the information that I put in. Here's my Bob and the address and the other stuff that I put in. Credit card information, all that stuff just came over. And it's already loaded, and all you would need to do is take the next step to process it. At the same time, it's putting it on your reminder page so that you could then, obviously, if you have somebody who does, let's say, your payments for you, you could forward this to them as a reminder, assign it to somebody else, and have them work on it, on your behalf. So as simple as it is, that's what the Submit Payment API is. Right? It just took the information from the website, loaded it on their profile, and allows you to go and submit a payment directly from the screen if it's one of the suppliers that we link to for payments, which today is EGT and Travel Impressions. Sorry, EGT being exclusive group travel for those of you who aren't aware. On the payment side, just the known caveat today is if it's a contracted group and you have a reservation number where there's multiple trips or reservations tied to that same reservation number, it won't know which contact to tie it to. And very honestly, it's just tying it to a contact. So you can see it here, but it's not going to be connected to the right contact, and therefore, has a, will require you to edit it, delete it, or copy and paste it to a new contact. On individual FIT reservations or on contracted groups at EGT, because they have individual reservation numbers for each of their rooms, it actually works better on EGT. It works great on all FIT bookings. The only place it doesn't work good is if you have multiple people or trips tied to the same reservation number. All right, so it's
one of the reasons we use, as Robert again, one of the reasons we use JetBlue Account is the option to put 191, whatever the reservation number is that you put in, is to show you when it's a contractual group number and you have 30 rooms, 10 rooms, whatever, that you'll have to make some adjustments. We could have showed you the perfect storm, which would have been Mark Manuel, the guy below, and it would have just populated and linked to his profile. We already know that works well. So the reason why Nick is bringing up EGT is because all those individual reservation numbers are children, or lack of a better word, children, to the parent number, which would be your main contract number. It works super well, and I hope all other core operators follow suit to have parent and child numbers. It just works well with anything. And to be honest with you, we were pushing, to get that reservation information, the legal information, all the different spellings of Keisha and Robert and Jamie, whoever. That was the big one, but I pushed payment. And the reason why is when I actually sat down with, some of my agents and other agents outside these firms, I found out that payments are the things that don't make the money. So, we have clients that stream the client that wants to make weekly payments of $87.50, and then you have the other client, that makes payments that are, deposit and final. But you're still making two payments. You'll still have two screens open, and of course, with the hit the button with the CRM, that makes it super easy to save tons of time. Well, now they can submit their information when they feel like it's on the link that you'll provide them, and it just saves enough more time. We that card over again. Is that your Amex? What's your current billing address for the shipping? And, all that stuff. It allows you to keep on working while they're submitting their information. So it's a huge time saver and a huge accuracy. You're not sitting there on the phone. You're actually, doing something that makes you money.
Are you ready for questions?
In 1 second. The only other caveat is we are working on a solution for that will match multiple criteria like names as a way to lessen the likelihood of it being applied to the wrong person on contracted groups. If you have other ideas, and where email address is another field that we're looking to use. We're working on this. Nikita's working on this implementation currently. So we do expect to have a better solution for the contracted group scenario, within the next week to 2 weeks. So again, you could elect to go forward without it. You could elect to implement or wait. But obviously, I just want to make sure everybody's aware this is at least one of the larger issues that we know about today, but we didn't want to hold up because, the implementation for those who wanted to go forward. If you have other ideas, feel free to shoot me an email, but I don't want to necessarily have a debate or discussion on other ways to handle that on this call. If you have questions on submit payment, definitely fire away, and then we can go to the other interface also.
Excellent. Can you go back to that submit a payment for each of them?
Sure.
So what happens if they don't have their confirmation number? Or field?
I mean, today there's no way for it to know for it to go on the vacation CRM side.
So it wouldn't go anywhere? What would happen if they left it blank?
John or Nikita? Either of you guys on?
Oh, yes, I'm on.
What would happen if we left it blank?
What would happen? I'm sorry. What was that?
No problem. If the confirmation number is left blank or reservation number, and this was submitted, would it go anywhere, or do you actually have it as a required field?
Right now on Rob's site, it is a required field, and then if it's left blank, then what would happen is it would send a test to Vacation CRM, and Vacation CRM would send a message back saying that the confirmation number did not match. And I actually have additional logic on the site that basically gives a message to the customer saying, hey, this number didn't match. Can you please check it, try again?
So for today, that's because we're matching on only that today, you would need to make that a required field. Once we go forward with the version 1.1 that will look for other matching fields, then it would just need to match on something, and we'll obviously update the specifications to say what those fields would be. I think what we talked about was some combination of email address, confirmation number, and or last name, but we're still working through the details of that. So give us another week or two to iron that out and test it to ensure that we're not opening ourselves up to another can of worms.
And the next question is, what about the other payment fields? I'm noticing on this particular form, there are some other payment fields like, is it a honeymoon registry gift? Do you want to make a donation to Beach Bum Cares? Do those show up anywhere on the Vacation CRM?
I believe, and John, you can answer that. I believe there's just comments or open that stuff could.
Yeah, I believe the way that I passed it is part of the note.
Yeah.
That was more. I think that was more just to help them tie in.
Right. So, and that's the way we've implemented it too. We've just put any other information that did fit into the payment fields as in the notes field. So again, this is where the flexibility is there for you to do sort of what you want. It sounds like both Beach Bum and I've implemented the same way. We took anything that didn't fit in a box into that notes field.
Yeah, and that was the best way to do it, Robert, again, with Beach Bum. That was John, our developer, web developer, that built our form. I wouldn't say it's rocket science, but it's definitely not your average web guy. We were going to work on another version so that you guys can either have it on Vacation CRM or you can have it on your website. I think it should be on your website. It's just my opinion. It's a business decision, whatever. But I'm not for the confirmation number because of people at work, and they'll email you what's my confirmation number, making a payment. Well, they might as well just give me the payment information on the phone, which is kind of having the payment form. So having the match with the email address and the legal names and stuff like that will definitely work better, and I'm hoping that we can work that out. Also, you also got to remember there's an invoice number on our Vacation CRM invoices, and
Sure.
So, I'm not familiar enough with your payment form, but do you actually have like a signature block on your payment form?
It doesn't look like they do.
No.
So we're not providing, right, so again, any information could be passed on. It's just a matter of everybody's form could look different, have different fields, have different requirements, or for legal or other purposes want to store or pass other information. You got to remember, this isn't meant to, if you have a payment form today, more than likely it's going somewhere in your own database, right? This may or may not replace it depending on your needs, right? But at a minimum, it should at least allow you to stop having to copy and paste from that, wherever it goes today, to CRM or to the supplier directly to process. If that makes sense.
John, good question. Why don't we have an electronic version in there? I know you do it on reservation form. Should we add that?
Yeah, we can definitely add it. Again, that typically comes down to preference of the company. For this, because we're not actually submitting the payment through a processor, we didn't specifically add that in, but we can very easily add it in.
Yeah, so why don't we leave that? I mean, that's an individual company decision. Any other questions?
Yeah, I have a question. Are the parameters that are listed here in Slavey, under the post request, I'm looking at the documentation too, are those the only open parameters that are available right now?
That's for version 1. That's all there is.
Okay.
That there's not to say that this won't be enhanced and improved going forward, but we buttoned it down for today because of this is what we've been able to test and ensure works. And it's, again, we're walking before we're running. Version 1, this is what we can pass.
Hey, Mitch, Nikita. The only thing I wanted to add is that for payments, there's a pretty limited number of fields. But when you're talking about the profile, the reservation form, we actually do provide what's called custom fields. And there's going to be an ability in the future to basically map any custom field in the API to any field on the VCRM form. So that's going to provide some extensibility for fields that we don't have a clean mapping for right now. So it's just something to keep in mind for reservations.
Awesome, Nikita. Thank you. The lady that asked the question just before you, Nikita, regarding the parameters, what was your suggestion that you might be missing that I'd love to get?
Yeah, why don't we take that off anyhow, Robert? But I think what she's asking is if they want to capture additional information that's not in the API today, is there a way to do it? And I think Nikita's answer was the direction we're going, which was mine, which is in the future we'll have the ability to basically, you'll be able to map any field, including custom fields that exist in VCRM, and access them or load information into them via the API. Correct, Nikita?
That's correct.
Okay. So again, this version is kind of buttoned down. Future version will actually have additional flexibility. So if you had a custom field called, I don't know, customer number, and you supplied that to your customers and wanted them to load information via that number, you could. Or any information or any field in CRM. If you had it on a form on your website, you would have the ability to move the data from your website to VCRM and load it in the appropriate bucket or field, I should say. All right. Any other on submit payments before we go on to the second API? And again, I'm somewhat intentionally staying high level, knowing that there are the specifics in the API, and we could have further dialogue, Facebook messages, and we will have calls in the future on a more detailed programming level for those people, interested in implementing. I just wanted to keep this rather high level as an introductory for today.
I actually do have a question. Is there any plans to be more PCI compliant with the credit card information so that we could capture that and not risk that information being captured by somebody maliciously?
I mean, Nikita can address that. There are some protections in place today, but we're working on actually, on our plan is a much more PCI compliant way of doing this. Nikita, do you want to quickly touch on that?
Yeah. I mean, right now first of all, the API is through the HTTPS protocol, so that keeps the transmission very safe. We store it in an encrypted field, so there is some protection there. However, to be truly PCI compliant, we cannot store credit card data at all. So what we're moving to is using a token service. That's going to be in an upcoming release where the credit card information is going to be hosted by a third party, and we just have basically a token ID that we will use to retrieve the credit card information when it's needed, and not have it stored in our database at all.
So that's the plan. That's the direction we're moving. And just like everything else, we had to prioritize and move forward in a strategic manner. So we've already investigated it. We've already got a game plan for that.
Great, thank you.
Who was that, by the way?
Aaron at Landmark Destination Weddings.
Okay, thank you. Anything else on payments? All right. So the second form that we have a linkage to, I'm gonna, again show Robert's reservation form. It allows, if you have a sort of contact-driven form with trip information or other information, they also have the linkage from this Connect with an Expert form where this information itself would go directly to CRM. So this could be a contact us field. It could be a new reservation request field. Very honestly, you have, again, the flexibility on your web page to capture the information any way you want. All it's about, really, the API is about taking that information, and based on what's filled in, that information would come over via this new web reservation. And the information that could come over could say that it's a new quote, be assigned to an agent if it is assigned to an agent, or not assigned to an agent and going to the admin if no agent was selected. It has the ability to capture their profile information from those fields, putting it in the right buckets. If you have multiple family members on a reservation or on your form, they would have the ability to load the family members with the linkage to the primary contact. And again, you have the flexibility of how you want to build the forms on your page. The API is all about just how do you map it to the fields that are in CRM so that it populates it automatically without forcing you to manually enter it or copy and paste from another source today. So I didn't want to fill out his form because it's way too long, but all it's really doing is taking the information, putting it in a trip and or a profile, depending on what's entered on those fields.
Because I'm going to add in there, again, Robert, because we're either lazy or efficient, and you want to capture all that information, whether you book or not, just check with an expert, whatever you want to say, contact us, whatever your version of that is. We want to capture that information every time, because that's a lot of the savvy clients we're working with today, would be the age of 25 to 45. They're at work, they're on their phones, they're on their iPads, different tablets. They're actually wanting to be connected. They don't really want to be bothered at that moment. They just want some information. And yes, we want to connect with them on the phone. We want to talk to them to build that relationship. But I definitely want to be able to track, how many are we closing, how many profiles we have in there that turned into reservations and stuff like that. So that's our way of doing it, and we just want to capture that information. You know, it's not as long as Mitch said. It's pretty, you know, quick. And the only issue we have there, if you go back to that second form, again, this will be dealt with hopefully in the next 24 hours. If you scroll down, it shows them your name, email, phone number, blah, 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 and you get who to choose. You know, the different forms.
Which one? The Connect?
Yes. Okay. So there's two versions of who you can choose. You can choose any of our agents that you can see there, or you can click on allow us to choose a travel concierge for you. Currently now, we have to come up with a process in Education CRM of how to assign that. So it's basically, they hadn't worked with us before, they really don't have a relationship with any of the agents, you know, that are listed below. So they click, I'll let you guys choose, because they want so specific. And I can't really get so specific to, let's say, Joanne, because maybe Joanne's not an expert, has been. So I know I'm going to assign it to, let's say, Carrie, because Carrie is an expert, she's been twice. So I'm going to assign it. So right now, the only issue we have, we're going to work this out hopefully by, you know, the next couple of days, is I would have to log in and assign it to Carrie as an administrator of Vacation CRM for these publications. So other than that, it's working well when they choose their agent. The quick fix there is to take allow us to choose your own travel concierge, or allow us to choose, and then they have to pick. But I didn't want them to, you know, picking somebody that really was struggling in you know, Europe or a cruise, or, you know, something that wasn't a forte.
Okay, so thanks, Robert. Any other or any specific questions about, I mean, again, it's pretty generic. It allows you to, based on how you build your form on your website or have it existing today, whether it's about reservation information, whether it's just about a new lead or a contact us type information, it allows you to automatically have that show up in the dashboard of either the agent that's selected or just the admin by default. Allows it to automatically load that contact information and allows you to reassign it, close it, just gives you a head start on entering the contact information that today I'm sure all of us spend hours upon hours typing or copying in. For those of you who have asked about lead management in the past, you know, to me this is sort of our first step into lead management, where if you don't want it assigned to an agent, as Robert talked to, you could have this new, you could call it a new lead come in, and then based on the criteria of that new lead, you could, you know, then assign it to the appropriate person based on what that request is. So if it's Riviera Maya trip, you could then assign it to an agent and it would show up in their dashboard. Questions on the second API?
Yes.
And who is this?
So, this is Connie.
Hey, Connie.
I just wanted to confirm, you have the ability, it appears that you have the ability to have that feed from multiple different forms. In other words, it might be a traveler information form where they're closer to making a reservation versus a contact form for an initial contact. Is that true?
Yeah, the system on the VCRM side, it's just data. So it's really up to you on your side, how and when and where in your sales process do you capture customer data, and what customer data do you capture at that time in the process. So if you have a new contact request form, right, you may want that, you know, what you may capture is just what we displayed, their name, their email address, their phone number, you know, maybe some notes on what they're looking for. And you could have that either tied to an agent or just go to, you know, the admin, or you can direct it to a specific individual who gets all your new leads, right? You may then have a different form further in the process where, let's say you have a, you know, like Robert used the example of, you have a contracted group and people are instructed to go to a different form for, you know, reserving a room within a group for a wedding. right, you then may have additional information that you'd be able to capture. What room category, what resort, what are their dates of departure and arrival. It's not going to build reservation components in the res, but at least it could capture that data directly loaded into fields on the trip within CRM, create a new trip, link it to the right contact, create those profiles, and then at least move in the right direction without you having to manually, for each new reservation, type in that information. And then where we're going is obviously right now it only links on that res number. If you have somebody in there, and that's where the deduping functionality and the ability to match on other fields is really going to start being valuable. So if you have that email address already in your database, for instance, rather than creating a new profile with a new trip and then forcing you to merge it via the duplicate functionality, which for those of you who don't know is under utilities, if you're an admin, it would allow anybody to do, it would almost do it not requiring you to do the deduping. So again, we know it's not perfect. It doesn't fit every need. And it's really up to you to decide, do you want to implement today? What do you want to implement today? What do you want to wait for release 1.1 or 1.2 as we further refine and enhance the interface as we come up with more and more issues during our testing.
And does it capture some sort of detailed information on the referral field? In other words, specifically which form it was that it was coming from?
You could put that in as you control the API. So if you want to add that in the notes field, you could hard code that in the notes field that this is from your new request form, right? And that's sort of what John did on the Beach Bum implementation, right? So it shows him right here in the notes that this is from the request quote submission. John, I'm assuming you just hard coded this in the interface, correct?
Correct. It was just passed as part of one of the custom fields.
Yep.
Is there any way, John, on trip name we could have that deleted? So the trip name web reservation request, it really should say web request.
I believe that might be something that Nikita would have to add to the API, because right now I don't actually have one that says trip name.
So back, Mitch, if you go back to the dashboard for a second. Again, this is great, but we'll just triple check it. It says web payment, love it. Web reservation. We should see web reservation, then we should see web request. It's two different items there, because you're going to see different reservations there, but there also is the web request. Just say requesting information. I want to start working with you guys. So
No, that's fine. Why don't we'll add that to the items that we'll look at for this next release in 1.1. If it's not something that is really easy, Nikita.
Yeah, I mean, we just have to figure out, what we call these when they come into as reminders. So it's really just
it might actually, not to brainstorm, but it might actually require us to add it as I don't know. We could add that later as a potential field as part of the interface. So you could identify, if it's new contact versus new reservation, or new request versus new reservation. All right. Any other comments, suggestions, questions?
I got another one here for you. This is Connie again. And I just wanted to also confirm, is it possible? So, does this only interface from my website, my main website, but I have separate websites for each wedding, for example. So could I also interface it from each of my wedding websites?
The system doesn't know where it's coming from. You could interface it from your Facebook page in reality, as long as it passes the right unique agency ID, so it knows to put it in your database and not my database. And obviously it wouldn't. It would just reject. But as long as it passes the right information, the VCRM system has no idea where the data is coming from. So you could build it all over the place in your website, on multiple websites. If you have independent contractors that have their own websites, they could build separate linkages as long as it's passing the right data with the right agency ID, and if you want it directed to a specific agent, to that specific agent, it doesn't matter where it's coming from.
And just from a practical purpose, is this something that's built onto the website end of things?
Well,
Where I put whatever coding it is that you're writing.
The vacation CRM in this version, we have the ability to receive data and load it. We don't have the ability in this version to capture data. And that's one of the things that we're in discussions on as to both how and where, and could we simplify the process for those that are not technical, where we could build the buckets with some flexibility that you could more simply add to your website. Today, we in version 1, this requires you to push the data to Vacation CRM, and our API tells you how to push it and how it will be loaded.
John, since you're the web guy that usually most of us will work with, meaning that type of person and not you individually, Colleen will have a web guy like you, and I'm sure several others have similar people. Really, what they need to do to talk to their web service or web person or IT, whatever the case is, or even maybe hire someone to build these forms. What do they need to do? Talk to a person like yourself and move on.
Realistically, it's going to come down to a conversation with the developer as to how that data is being handled. Because a lot of times most contact forms will just take the information and send it to an email address. But if you're using something like maybe say WordPress, or maybe if it's something like Robert's site where it's more of a custom type of website, you might have to give them a little bit of time to take a look through the API documentation and actually come up with a plan that can implement the forms in your Vacation CRM. It really just depends on what type of website you're using and how that data is currently being handled. It's not overly complex to use the API to send the data, but it's going to be, the developers are going to have to look at it more on a case-by-case basis to see how that data is currently being handled in order to decide how it can actually be provided in the Vacation CRM.
Right, perfect. Because I don't want anyone to think, or anyone to be like, oh, I'm going to be brainstorm here and we got frustrated. We still, just so everyone knows, we still get the email that John's talking about that you normally get from a form, whether it's built on your website or another website or wherever, because I want to be at the grocery store to see I got a new request in, or a payment in, or a web reservation that just came in from a guy who's dying to close and he just lollygag and reply back to me. So that I log into Vacation CRM and then boom, it's there. Just so you know that you want to keep that there, just so you don't have to be tied or logged into Vacation CRM 24/7. And just wait. You want to be alerted by email. And again, that's just our preference, it's our business practice, but that way you have the freedom to go get your nails done, or whatever travel. You may be on a fan trip or on vacation, and you'll be able to see those things. Use time savers. We haven't made a spelling mistake in, I do believe, 5 or 6 years on wood because of this process. Now that it's going into Vacation CRM, now we're not doing data entry. And, for those salespeople and that don't have admin people, or you don't have a process to do that inside your company, this is a humongous time saver. When I sat down with most of our top agents at Beachbum and said, what do you guys want? And I figured we were going to hear raise. They said, can you give me administrators? I'm really tired of stuff, and I'm not a data entry person. Don't they make like $10 an hour? And again, I'm giving you you my version of it. I don't believe they said exactly those words. And I'm like, oh, all right, great. So when the patient CRM results, we really knew that was on the table, high priority to have information migrated, whatever way you want to call it, transferred into the patient CRM. And now that, we're watching a 20% increase in sales due to not having to type in, Robert Andrew Worrell at this birthday, his Texas, mail, and all the information that's sitting there that takes 10, 15 minutes. We lived into another system that probably a lot of you have used before, Coinbase Online, and it was more cumbersome and stuff like that. And there's other systems out there that are cumbersome. We wanted to be seamless and easy and more efficient for today's 2015, travel professional that's going to travel, extensively and be mobile. So.
All right. Other questions, comments? Obviously, this is just the introduction. We could obviously, beat this up. And as we've already pointed out, a lot of it will depend on how you choose to implement it on your site or sites and into your sales process. And again, this is just version 1. It will get better. And for those of you who aren't very technical, hopefully it will, we're working on potential ideas on how to make it simpler for you to, integrate this into your process. So, trust us in that we are actively working on that and thinking about it. Any other on either API? And then if not, I would just open this up for any other items that require demonstration or questions on best practices, etc. All right, nothing on API. I will set up a call probably, I'll be honest and say, once we get a better date from Nikita on when the next release will be available, I'll probably set up a call based on that date, either before it, if it's going to take a little bit, or after it, again, just to review the new enhancements for the next version. And then, if you have technical people that you want to get on the phone, it would be a good chance again with Nikita on the line, hopefully to go through any very technical elements of the API for people who are looking to implement either now or in the near future. And feel free to post on Facebook group at any time. And I generally do my best to answer or get Nikita to answer if it's beyond my scope. If there's nothing else on API, does anybody else have any other generic process questions, application questions, etc.?
Is there anyone from the B-Club team on?
This is Christine. I'm on.
You're not an agent. I was hoping they'd have an agent. I just want to get your take on how much time it's taking them when this is implemented and how much freedom they have. We had a couple of situations where, like I said earlier, when it said pay by phone, and it didn't go into the patient there, and we fixed it within hours. And they were so distraught, not like nice distraught, maybe the 3 words. They were so disappointed that they had to type the information in because they didn't want to ask their clients to submit again. Once we fixed it an hour or 2 later, it was interesting. I know how spoiled you are in a couple weeks. So it's huge for your agent or yourself, whatever. Most of us all still sell, little to a lot, whatever. But we're super excited about it individually as a company, but also as a patient CRM, and it's such a huge time saver, and all the different things that come with it. That it will change. And I know that's a cliche and everything, and a very common saying, but it is a game changer, and it'll change your entire business model in a way you have more time, you have more accuracy. And to be honest with you, there's the odd client that's probably, older, I hate to stereotype, but that will maybe say, can I give your information over the phone? Hey, you can go to Reservation here and type it in. Maybe you can go to your own website and type it in. You'll still have 1 or 2 of them here and there. But most clients have no problem. And if they say, hey, you already have my information, say, well, this is our process to make sure everything's now. Just loaded in patient CRM 25 or 30 days, whatever it is. So the content was fine, and it didn't, no client really talk, you fill out the form or push back on it too much. So just to have it just go flow in like that, you're gonna sit there and do a happy dance once you see the first one come in. It will definitely change your day.
I have a question.
Yep, fire away.
So,
And who is this?
I just don't understand, and that I'm a pretty technical person, but what I haven't connected with yet is I use JotForm as a form builder. Is that going to be able to be tied in, or do I need to use a more standardized WordPress? My site is through WordPress. Do I need to use a build-it-yourself WordPress form?
As long as it has the ability to capture the data and push the data somewhere, you may need to, I'm not familiar enough with JotForm. That's where the disconnect is, whether or not it has the capability of pushing the data to Vacation CRM.
John,
It's Nikita. I think the bare minimum is that you are able to control some of the content on that form. So you wouldn't want to put some JavaScript. That's the easiest integration right now with the API is to use JavaScript to send the request. So if you have the ability to add JavaScript, custom JavaScript to a form, you should be good. You don't have to have access to any kind of server-side technologies to use this, but at least you got to have JavaScript right now. So that's the minimum.
And again, go ahead.
Sorry.
Yeah, I'm an admin, but for some reason I can't see everybody's, dashboard or anything. Is there a certain thing that I'm not obviously doing correctly, or how do I?
If you're an admin in the user sense and marked as an admin, here, when you go to your dashboard, you should have this agent dropdown where you can see based on, if you want to see all agents, you would have to toggle to all agents.
Right, and then when I do that, I don't see anything. And like when I put a specific person I want to see there,
Yes.
dashboard or anything, I don't see anybody, any information under anybody.
And are they entering information?
Yes.
If you could email me, your specific database, I'll forward it to the Valix team to look at.
Okay, great, thanks.
Yeah, because Mitch, you can show her right now on the screen that you can use the drop down, and you can be admin, you can be Robert, or you can see everybody.
Yeah.
And that's the way you should.
Right.
Yeah, any admin will have the ability to view, to have this drop down, and you would be able to toggle to a specific user or all agents.
Right, I have the drop down, but when I click on all users or individual agents, nothing comes up.
Okay, just shoot me an email and we'll have to investigate what's going on.
All right, thanks.
Any other generic questions, process questions? Do people want me to go through how to add things to drop downs? That seems to be a popular request on Facebook lately. Or everybody on the phone?
I am positive that I'm not using the system to its highest and best use, because this is funny again. Even though I, do all of my trip entries and for goodness sakes, my trip entries and my client entries and such, that's essentially all it's done. I've never even run a report. So currently I'm just pulling as fast as I can just to keep everything entered. But I will say, I sell mostly outside insurance. In other words, if I'm booking with.
Yep. So you're using Travel Guard or one of the others.
Exactly. And one of the things that's really weird about that is it seems that it's set up that I have to to enter the trip and then enter the reservation. For example, it seems like the majority of my business these days is with exclusive group travel. So I enter the exclusive group travel stuff, and even though there's a travel insurance there, that appears to be tied to the exclusive group travel. So then I have to come out and enter a separate reservation for the travel insurance. Is that really? And then it shows up weirdly on the invoice. Is that really how it's designed to be used?
Yeah, I mean, and again, you have the ability to implement this the way you want. So the two ways that I would say really your choices on adding insurance are, you can either go in to your reservation and you could update your insurance component to say, instead of FunJet All-in-One, which is what they download as, you could type in Travel Guard Policy 5643 with a price and a commission amount. You can do that, and it will show up on the invoice as exactly that. The problem with that, or the limitation for that, if you care or not, is when you run commission reporting, it's going to just show up here as the total commission that you expect, realizing that some of that may be from the tour operator and some of that may be from the third-party insurance company. There's no way of tracking that you were paid on both. So let's say
Where I'm doing it separately.
if you're saying, right, so if let's say FunJet paid you on the 1st of January for this, you would mark generally, you know, hey, you got paid and this is the amount. There's no way to also show that you were paid unless you put it in the comments for the travel guard piece. So if you're using it for commissions, very honestly, the best and, you know, the right way to do it would be to separate it, as you point out, go and add it as a second reservation tied to this trip, put it as a travel insurance policy, put the information in. I mean, all you really need to put in is a quick, you know, what is it, right? You could just put it in right there. And then if you want the orders to change, you could put this either as number 1 or number 2, depending on if you want the insurance up top or below. And it will show up on your invoice as a separate reservation because, in fact, it is a separate reservation.
That's what we do at Beachbum. We separate it as an individual reservation inside the trip, because the trip is the entire trip from the time they leave the home to the time they get back to the home. Especially if you're doing Europe, you know, you have someone, you know, flying to Heathrow, doing a couple nights in London, then taking the train, you know, with France, or a cruise, you know, if they're in Venice and they're taking a cruise for 3 or 4 or 7 nights, whatever, you'll have all those as separate reservations as part of the main trip. And that way you can track the commissions a little easier. And just while I have the chance, is anyone not booking with EGT yet? And it's just kind of a separate conversation. And we can
Yeah, why don't we take that offline, though? If I'll just cut you off there, Robert. If people are not using them just due to the integration that exists today, you know, feel free to reach out to Robert and I for more information, both on the integration and on other matters. Sorry to cut you off, Robert. We're just coming up on an hour.
Yeah, I hear you. I just wanted to plug like 20 seconds. Excellent team. I know them all very well. They have the best technology I've seen yet in the tour operator industry. They are very integral. They made our lives easier, especially with groups and destination weddings where they have individual booking numbers. I do not have to make a phone call. I don't have to submit something. I can add on airfare when I want. I can add on an excursion when I want. I can do it 2 o'clock in the morning. I can do it on a Saturday or Sunday. You know, it's changed our lives again, similar to an application CRM, and it's making us more efficient. We don't have to, you know, leave out airfare on booking number under these passengers' names that already have a room on a